Welcome, everybody. We are so glad that you were able to join us this evening for our session, Helping Your Child Save a Life. This is the parent training that accompanies the signs of suicide prevention curriculum that we are preparing to implement. We just started implementing in our middle and high schools in grades 8 and 10. So we are so happy that all of you are here. We have a panel that will be presenting this evening. I'm Christina Vitek, Director of Psychological Services, Student Support and Wellness. And with me tonight, we have Amy Johnson, Student Support and Wellness Specialist, Mark Brandenberger, Health, Physical, and Driver's Education Specialist, Mike Walsh, the Program Manager for Youth and Family Services and Same-Day Access with Henrico Area Mental Health and Developmental Services, and Joan Oslins, School Counselor at Pocahontas Middle School. As we begin every session, we like to ground our work, taking it back to the cornerstones of Henrico County Public Schools. You know, we're really grounded in safety and wellness and relationships as a division, and we've identified the main priorities for Henrico County Public Schools in our Destination 2025, which is our strategic plan. We have 8 goals that are front and center and driving all of our work. So tonight, this session and the Signs of Suicide program really come back to the goal to foster an inclusive, safe, and supportive climate for all stakeholders. That is one of our foremost priorities here in Henrico County Public Schools, and we believe that by implementing the Signs of Suicide program, we are helping to achieve this goal, and specifically the objective that students will have their social and emotional needs met.
So before we begin our session tonight, we'd like to acknowledge that talking about suicide can be challenging and a heavy topic for everyone. So please make sure you take care of yourself during our time together, as well as after our session concludes. If at any time you begin to feel overwhelmed or upset by the content, please feel free to step away from the session for a bit. We also want to share a couple national resources that are always available. Those are the Suicide Prevention Lifeline and the Crisis Text Line. Also, local resources are available as well. As you all heard in the introductions, we're lucky to have a representative from Henrico Mental Health with us tonight, Mike Walsh. So please feel free to stay on this call after our presentation if you'd like the opportunity to debrief or decompress. Also, one final thing before we get started. Due to the sensitive subject and being aware that many of us may be at home where other ears are around, please take time to adjust or get headphones or maybe move to a more private space. So a brief overview of our time together this evening. So we'll start with a review of suicide prevention basics. Then we'll move into an overview of the Signs of Suicide curriculum, which will include reviewing the acronym ACT and what that means, and also what to do if your child or student expresses thoughts of suicide of their own or regarding a friend. Next, we're going to hear from our health and PE specialist and one of our school counselors. They're going to provide an overview of what the SOS lessons look like within the classroom. So hearing how the lesson is delivered and also how it ties into the existing health and wellness curriculum. We'll then discuss coping skills and ways to build our coping skills, and then we'll conclude with a community resource share out. At that time, we'll then end our recording so that we may take questions from our audience. So when we think about why suicide happens, there's many contributing factors. Of course, the list that you see here is not inclusive to all factors. However, many times it really boils down to trying to stop the intense emotional pain that they're experiencing. With any of these factors, we want you all to know there's help and support available. Please don't think you have to do this all alone. It can be a very difficult experience to help someone you love and care about when they are struggling with these feelings and emotions. So some of the factors that can contribute to this pain are untreated depression. You know, the majority of people who die by suicide have a mental health disorder, and most commonly depression. These mental health conditions are treatable, but many kids struggle without getting help. When depression goes untreated, a young person may begin to feel so hopeless that they consider suicide. It may seem like the only way not to experience these feelings. One of the signs of depression can be isolating or withdrawing from peers and or family. So be aware if you begin to notice this taking place. Drinking or drug use. Many young people who struggle with depression also struggle with alcohol and or drug use. Substance use can be a form of escape from the pain. It's a temporary escape, which we can all know lead to additional troubles, but again, it can be used as an escape. Talk to your child or student about the dangers of using alcohol, drugs, or substances in general to cope with negative emotions. If you're aware of your child using substances, again, please be sure to seek support. Having access to guns. Suicide crises are often short-term, but having access to guns makes it easier to carry out the act in an instant. Many people keep unlocked guns in their homes, making them easy to get, quick, and deadly for any young person. Reduce suicide risk by not storing a gun in your home. If you choose to keep a gun in your home, keep it locked, unloaded, and store ammunition separately. And then thoughts of suicide. When someone has thoughts of suicide, it does not necessarily mean wanting to die. Instead, the person is trying to solve the problem of the intense emotional pain and hopelessness. People generally don't want to die. They want the pain to stop. Again, please seek support from a professional. So how can we prevent suicide? There are many areas where we can intervene before someone reaches the point of considering suicide. When young people get treatment for depression or substance use, they can begin to feel much better, and that sense of hope begins to return. Developing coping skills as well as building connections with peers and adults can buffer young people during difficult times. We call these things protective factors. So we'll kind of build our protective factors here. Protective factors are things that help mitigate or reduce risk while also building and increasing the health and well-being of our youth. So just as a reminder of you being here tonight, engaging in this difficult topic allows all of us to really become a protective factor for a young person. Your help and support is so important. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mark, to discuss how this topic connects with his work that his team is providing.
Thank you, Amy. In our middle school and high school curriculums for health education, we do bridge into this content, primarily at looking at causes for student stress, anxiety, and leading to teen depression. We certainly always talk about healthful habits and healthy skills that help anyone in any situation, but specifically at this age, we help students identify what their stressors are. Even in a pre-COVID setting, there may be life event stressors that are causing students difficulty at specific times in their life, whether it be a new family situation, relationship difficulties, financial troubles, in addition to things that may turn a child's life upside down, like losing a sibling or a parent or even a loved pet. So helping our students identify the situations where they have significant risk helps us look at which healthy habits can benefit a student on a day in and day out basis. We also will attach our lessons to relationships and relationship building, as many of our peer relationships that are healthy relationships allow us to have a look inside of our friends and see when they are in pain and understand what they are going through, and to be a listening ear, and what we'll learn shortly, perhaps the primary referral source for someone who is really having a difficult time. We'll talk more about exactly what things our peers and our families can do for us, but we do want you to know that we are very mindful with setting the table ahead of these lessons by having significant discussions with students on stress, anxiety, and teen depression, to really provide a launching pad to get into this very serious and sensitive content about suicide. I believe I'm going to pass it back.
So Joan, if you want to jump in here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joan Oslins, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I am a middle school counselor at Pocahontas Middle School, and I've delivered this lesson to our 8th graders a number of times. In fact, I just did it on Monday of this week. And one of the things I want to talk about is that we focus on a couple of different areas. In that, one, we ask our 8th graders to help us, but not try to heal a friend. We let them know that we're not here to diagnose, treat, or diagnose, treat, or save a friend. I mean, like, we're not going to do any of that. Our job is to recognize some of the symptoms that we might see in a friend. A lot of times kids will say to me, oh, I talked to them last night, and I've been helping them, Miss Oslins. And I said, well, we're not therapists. I'm not a therapist. I'm a school counselor. You're not a therapist. That's not our job. Our job in school is to act. And that is to acknowledge that our friend may have a problem, care enough about our friend to tell a trusted adult. Those are the 3 areas that we focus for our students. And we also let the kids know that we acknowledge as adults that kids talk to kids more than they talk to us. So that's why we're bringing this lesson to them. We know that you all will be the first to tell each other when something is wrong. You all are the ones that notice that your friends are acting different before maybe even we will, maybe even before their parents do. And so that's why we ask our students to be the extra eyes and ears for us in the school buildings. They're the ones that are right next to their friends, and they can really tell when something is off with one of their friends. And we help them recognize those signs, those warning signs. The SOS program has always been a phenomenal way for us to present this material to the kids. It's not above their heads. It doesn't talk down to them. It really meets our kids at their level. And it doesn't ask them to become a professional. It doesn't ask them to treat their friends or solve their problem. But what it does help them to do is recognize that these are some symptoms. Oh, my friend is withdrawing. Oh, my friend doesn't want to hang out. My friend didn't try out for soccer this year. They're always playing soccer. They stopped swimming. They stopped posting online. All these signs and symptoms, their behavior has changed. Their demeanor has changed. When I ask them about stuff, we ask them to recognize, and the program that we use, the SOS, the MindWise program, is so nice. It walks us as professional counselors and teachers, it walks us through the process of presenting it to the students. So when they leave, they really do. It's one of those lessons that when you present it, you know that the kids understood what you said, because they're all in there. They nod their heads. They participate. There's parts where we watch 3 videos that are scenarios. The kids come back, and in fact, part of what you're seeing tonight is part of the program that we actually present to the students. And the kids participate. Even the ones that usually don't want to participate will be like you can see them, they're trying not to, but their heads start to turn because, yes, I agree. And you can see their heads nodding and being a part of the program. So it's really our way to get kids to help their friends when their friends won't help themselves. And I have believed in this lesson for years. In fact, another counselor was on, and we were laughing about how years ago we had the DVDs and the paper program that we lived. So we've been doing it for a long time, and it's been that successful. And I can tell you, and I can share that years have gone by, and kids later on have come back and said, I really appreciated that lesson. That was one of my favorite lessons. And I'm kind of surprised by that. Like, really? You remember the SOS lesson? They're like, oh, yes. I've never forgotten that, Miss Oslin's. Like, even now as a college student, I've seen that in my friends, and I still know that I should acknowledge, care, and tell. I was like, You remember the acronym? Oh yeah, you act. You act. You don't stand by and just let your friends hurt. You act, acknowledge, care, and tell. It was so I'm always excited to present this lesson and what it does for our kids. So thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you, Joan. So just as Joan shared, when your child receives their SOS lesson, they're going to watch 3 video clips and then engage in a class discussion to learn the ACT acronym, the Acknowledge, Care, Tell. So we'll go through each of these. At the conclusion of the student lesson, it's the team's goal to host a debriefing session in order for students to smoothly transition into their next class. We understand that this can be a difficult topic for students, so we want to ensure that we can hold some time at the end of the lesson to support them. In addition, at the conclusion of the lesson, students can request support from an adult. So every student will be given a request to speak to an adult slip, or it may be done online. So parents are really an important part of this message as your trusted adults in your children's lives. So you may find that your child will request to talk to you about concerns for themselves or a friend. So again, we'll go through each one of the letters in the ACT acronym. Whoops, I'm sorry. I just completely skipped over that. So ACT is 1A is for acknowledge. So we want to first acknowledge that there's signs of depression, whether we're recognizing that in ourselves or within a friend. Then when someone expresses those or we see those symptoms, we want to acknowledge them. We want to show that we care. So just showing a friend that we care and then making sure that we listen to them, but also making sure that we take that information to a trusted adult. So just some of the warning signs that someone may be thinking about suicide, because many times people will give us clues that they're thinking about suicide. You may see anger. This could be new or a change in existing anger. Changes in behavior in general can be a warning sign. For example, if you typically have an outgoing child and they start to withdraw, this could be a clue. Expressing a sense of hopelessness, despair, or just overwhelming pain. Sleeping more or sleeping less, so just disrupted sleep patterns in general could be a warning sign. Again, as we mentioned, engaging in substance use, again, like we discussed earlier, this could be a way to kind of escape pain, so it should be viewed as a clue for help. And some young people may begin to talk about suicide or even use language that could indicate that they're thinking about suicide. So this is not an inclusive list of all the warning signs. However, these are the signs that students are learning to identify through the video clips and discussion in the classroom. And so it's important for parents to know these signs as well. So within their lesson, students are learning about the power of listening to their friends and showing that they care. We're encouraging students to practice active listening when they're concerned about a friend. Students can use a few simple phrases such as, I'm here for you, I care about you, I'm worried about you, to show they care, and then just listen. And then the next step, of course, is the most important step. And that's where SOS is encouraging our students to reach out and tell a trusted adult. So we're encouraging students to think about the adults in their school, just like Joan mentioned, think about all the adults in their school, also outside of their school that they can turn to in times of distress. We don't want them to think that they have to act alone. We also don't want them to think that they have to keep the information a secret. In some cases, this could literally be a matter of life and death. We want them to know that they need to rely on the support of trusted adults.
Amy, can I interject for 1 second?
Sure.
We really tell the kids that this is not a secret that you keep. We really stress that to the kids. And in fact, in one of the videos, I think it's video number 2, the girl says, please don't tell anyone. She says, okay. And it right away says, that's not what you're supposed to do. And we really talk about that, how that's not, you keep secrets about their password, who their crush is, things like that. But when we're talking about something as serious as hurting themselves or really being sad and depression and those warning signs we're seeing, those are secrets that you don't keep.
Thank you, Joan. And yes, we one of the things that we say regularly in all of our classrooms is to identify a trusted adult in your life and in the school building. And for many students, that will be a counselor, a trusted teacher, a coach, principal. One of the benefits in health and physical education is that we see every student in the school building, and we develop very open relationships with those students where they know they can come in and ask for assistance in any way. So our doors are always open to students. We look forward to any opportunity to assist a child in need. However, as well, our students and children will come home with these worries and wanting to share more information. If you're after the SOS lesson specifically, your child may want to talk to you about themselves or a friend. And so we wish to remind ourselves as parents that we can be the trusted adult in that situation to our own child's friend as well. If a child is concerned about a friend, then we should absolutely take a look at these options for us to act. Listen to our child's concerns and engage them to seek help. If it's not us, then we encourage them to continue to speak to trusted adults that can find assistance. Contact the friend's parents directly and share your child's concerns. We are community members. Many of you have neighborhood friendships, and so it's not inappropriate for you to act out or act with the information that your own child has brought home and share that with another parent. Contact the school's mental health staff and administrators so they can support the child and family. It's okay. Certainly that contact makes sense. If you're concerned about a child's immediate safety, this is absolutely a 911 emergency. And you may make that contact yourself anonymously and with the idea even to ask for a wellness check on someone. That's absolutely appropriate and necessary if we feel that we have a grave situation at hand. Reassure your child that they're doing the right thing, talking to you. Keep those lines of communications open, and we can work together to help save the life of a loved one and a friend. So help is always available. The pediatrician has resources. School counseling is very skilled at helping refer to additional resources, but again, for immediate safety, call 911. In terms of good parenting skills, from experience, most of us are speaking here. I'm not going to have all the answers, and I can be a calming force in my students' life, whether they have concerns about themselves or another. I don't have to be an expert or have the answers. This is a difficult conversation for all of us to have, and through many of the student trainings over the past years, we remind parents and students to ask the difficult question, are you considering suicide? That we need to become familiar with that word and its impact and power, and how it, using the word correctly and asking the question, make sure that we're on the same page with our student or any student in crisis. So the do's and don'ts. Give myself permission to be human. It is an uncomfortable situation. It's common to feel uncomfortable. Talk to a supportive person beforehand and debrief after. I often will discuss these matters with other parents of teenagers to find out what has worked well and what has caused more difficulty, which is the last thing that I want to do. But just like we do with the students, I am not going to keep a secret. I am going to continue this message and get it in the hands of those that are able to intervene on behalf of my own child or another. And those reactions when the child comes in with those difficult topics or questions, it's important for them to know that it is an open and safe place for them to have those conversations. Building protective factors. This is where your health and physical educators are day in and day out sharing strategies and healthful habits for young people. what we should be doing to manage emotions, anxiety, stress every day. However, some things have happened over the past 18, 20 odd months. Some students thrived during distance learning. Others struggled without my favorite sports, without my face-to-face peer relationships, activities that interested me, and access to those trusted adults. Some of us felt isolated, and I did not have my teacher from 2 years ago that I could always walk down the hall and talk about difficulties, and ask questions about other peers that are in relationships and what should we do. And some of them felt very isolated in those situations. We want to encourage ourselves as parents to work with our child to figure out ways that they can stay connected this year now that we are returning in person. Those relationships for the 8th graders aren't as strong as they were as if they had been in the building for 2 years. The 10th graders are new to high school. They're still navigating the building. So we want to let our students know, yes, there are trusted adults in the building. We want them to form those relationships. We also want them to remember the things that they should be doing day in and day out, the things that really assist them, that help us work towards building coping skills and developing resiliency. And so looking at coping skills, this is where over the past 2 years, a lot of our mental health professionals have shared, and parents have shared, that our students are really lacking in coping skills. And part of it is in part due to the the difficulty of being alone through online learning and feeling that we are alone. So taking a look at our coping skills, things that will assist us in healthy habits, regular exercise, daily exercise, physical activity, whether it be an athletic event or a sport, or simply getting out and walking and talking with friends, especially here while we still have favorable weather and can get some sunshine and create some vitamin D of our own. Journaling, writing down things that they are grateful for, keeping a diary or a journal, being mindful in using that and sharing our feelings with ourselves and or with others. Talking with friends and family. A lot of us have taken for granted the fact that we are back in school 7 hours, but perhaps there's actually less time for us to have those social opportunities where it's just us, the students, in an unsupervised opportunity to just talk and debrief with one another. Lunch becomes a paramount opportunity for students to debrief and chat with others, but also to come home and continue those conversations with family. Listening to music and other things, whether it be performing arts or just drawing, singing, doing the things that make students feel happy about being themselves. In my mind, those are the things that I refer to as spiritual, the things that make you feel better about being in your own skin. And then helping the students identifying what their favorite coping skills are and what their most effective coping skills are. Some of those coping skills can sometimes lead to procrastination. We're also sharing those techniques to overcome that, because some of us will redirect that energy and go sort our shoe closet, ascending alphabetically by color. So there are ways to redirect that energy, but we want to be mindful of why we're doing those things, and then taking a look at the most effective skills that can give us additional benefit as well. We are going to pass things off to our mental health professional and Mike with some guidance on talking to your teen. We do appreciate your time and being with us, and thank you so much from Health and PE, where we hope to talk to your students more each day.
Thanks, Mark. So as Mark mentioned, talking about suicide, depression, mental health issues can be very difficult, can be very uncomfortable. I kind of categorize it as similar to talking to your kids about drugs and sex. But the more that we can normalize talking about these issues and having these conversations with our kids, the more likely they are to come to us when there are concerns. So some of the strategies for getting kids to open up, and again, sometimes easier said than done, but asking open-ended questions. And I think we probably all have had an experience where we're trying to start a conversation with a teenager and say, well, how was your day? And you get, okay, fine, right? It can be challenging sometimes. So we may have to try a few different strategies before we find one that works. So things like, well, what was the best part of your day, or what was the most challenging part of your day? Maybe ways to kind of get a foot in the door to start a conversation. Don't rush to solve their problems, which may be challenging if you're very excited that they are finally coming to you to talk about something. It may be a natural inclination to want to try and give them a solution, or but something as simple as just acknowledging the challenge behind what they're bringing, like, wow, that's a tough situation. What do you think? Can really, it not just validates their feeling or what they're going through, but it also empowers them to consider their own solutions first, and to talk it out with you, talk about those options. And then being available and making sure your child knows it. So not just saying, I'm here if you need to talk, but actually, if they actually come to you and make that effort, doing what you can to be present with them. So, these could be maybe a nighttime routine, just kind of a check-in, kind of a situation. Kids often, I find, the car rides can be really good if your kids are lucky enough to be in extracurricular activities, and you have to do taxi duty to get them to and from. Those can be great opportunities to connect as well. I think this is part of what makes the conversation so difficult, is sometimes I think we may be afraid of what the answer might be sometimes when we ask about suicide, or we're worried that if we ask, maybe we'll be putting an idea in our child's head about about a solution that maybe we don't want them to think about. But that's really not, the research has really been pretty clear that asking your children about suicide does not put the idea in their head. And in fact, it really opens up opportunities to discuss something that they may have felt that they couldn't have talked to you about before. So it's very helpful, in fact, to just come right out and ask. I know we just talked about the importance of open-ended questions, but in this case, it's okay to start with a yes or no question. Do you wish you could go to sleep and not wake up? Do you wish you were dead? Have you had thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself or kill yourself? And from there, you can, the conversation can continue, and you can then, get more information, talk to them about ways that you can help them get connected with supports, and letting them know that you care and are glad that they came to you to talk about these things. And later on, we'll talk about some resources that are available to get your child or your child's friend or whoever it is that's come to talk to you, options for getting them support and help. But kind of the bottom line is that asking about suicide is important, and it's okay. It's hard, and it's okay.
Mike, can I, in the lesson, that's one of the big parts of the lesson is we tell kids is that it's okay to say to your friends that kind of thing. It's okay to say that to your parents. Like, saying the word suicide does not mean that puts someone in their head. And that's part of the lesson that is taught to 8th and 10th graders, that it's okay to say the word.
Yeah, and so again, getting kids to open up and talk can be really challenging. And so here's some suggestions on this list here. You guys will probably know what works best for your child, and you may need to try out a few different strategies here. But teen-led family meetings, playing games together. If the subject comes up in a movie, actually one of the ones, a personal example of that, and I hope I'm not I hope this isn't a spoiler for anybody, but WandaVision was a show that we watched recently with my kids. It really kind of unexpectedly, in some ways, touched on some themes of grief and depression, and so it opened up some conversations there when we watched that together. Going for a walk, taking a drive, those are opportunities where the lack of eye contact can make it a little bit less intimidating for kids to open up. And then continuing, not feeling like you have to have a big, drawn out, long conversation, kind of breaking it down into smaller pieces. And it's okay to say, let's come back and talk more about this later. Let's think about it, and we'll come back and touch base again. I think one of the strategies that I was talking to a colleague recently, which I thought was an interesting strategy to get their child to open up, but they asked them, what do you find most annoying about about who I am, what I do as a parent? What is the most annoying thing I do as a parent? And they were very ready to talk about that. And so that opened up, that started the conversation, and it continued from there. But I think this is to Christina.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. Love that opener. I think that's a great way to get your teens talking. So we just want to review in summary the action steps that you can take as a parent. First and foremost, just being here tonight is a huge action step in supporting your students. So again, thank you for your time. But we have 3 simple reminders. Number 1, look out for the warning signs. Seek help if you see those in your child or any other children that you're around. Number 2, help build those coping skills and just identify the positive supports for your child whenever you have the opportunity. Mark and Mike really touched on ways to engage with your students and lots of different coping skills. Each student is going to cope with things differently, and that's okay. So, give them the opportunity to try different strategies out, model for them, offer suggestions. That's how they learn. And then number 3, talk with your child about suicide. Be ready to listen if your child comes to you and is ready to act. That's what we're here for. We are here to be those positive and supportive adults to support our children and any children that we are around. I love this graph. It really kind of gives a good visual to exemplify this idea that together we can make a difference. So suicide, unfortunately, does remain the second leading cause of death for students ages 5 through 19, second only to accidents. But this graphic here shows how we have, as a society, been able to reduce the number of accidents over the past 15 years by working together, by coming together to enact different safety laws, making sure, that seatbelts are required, changing the license requirements for our teenagers so that they have a longer period before they can drive a motor vehicle alone at different hours. And so together, we've really been able to reduce the number of deaths in our teens due to accidents. And we would love to be able to see that same statistic show up in suicides. Together, parents, teachers, community members, students, friends, we together can make a difference and change that trajectory. So as we kind of wrap up our formal session with you this evening and then open it for questions, we want to leave you with a few resources. We know we've gone quickly over this content, but we want you to be able to reach out and explore a little bit more on your own if you have additional questions or you want to share things with friends or your students. So there is a Signs of Suicide parent page. The website is listed here, sosssignsofsuicide.org/parent. And here you can actually view program videos. You can do a checklist, a mental health kind of screening checklist about your own child, and it gives you additional resources and information about the Signs of Suicide program. So I hope you guys will all check that out. Additionally, there are some infographics and some visuals that are available on the SOS website and linked into some of the resources we'll share with you on the next slide. This is just a great way to remind yourself and to remind your family and anyone working with your child about ACT. So we encourage you to, again, print that off, share that with your children, put it in your house to, again, make talking about suicide and acting very normal, very accepted and supported. If you have your phone, go ahead and scan the QR code on this slide. Our Henrico County Public Schools school-based mental health teams put together some really fantastic web pages over the past summer. And so this is the secondary kind of generic page that has a number of different family supports. It includes community resource connections, state and national resources, apps, crisis hotlines, warm lines, and a page specifically devoted to signs of suicide that has those infographics, including the information on the ACT model and signs to be aware of. So we do hope that you will check this out and come back to it often. Many of you may also be familiar with this if your own school put out a similar page. Many schools did, which was great, but we just wanted to be sure we had a central one to offer anybody if they needed these resources. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about the community resources available?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can see here the Henrico Mental Health and Developmental Services intake line. You can certainly call to get more information if you have questions about any of the services that we offer. You can also, if you know that you're interested in accessing services, we have walk-in hours to access services. Those are Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 7:30 to 3 p.m., Thursday from 7:30 to 5:30, and Friday from 7:30 to 11. You can walk in during any of those times. It takes about an hour and a half, roughly, to get a case open, but you can walk in that day, be seen and assessed, and get scheduled with a provider in our agency for services. Also listed is our emergency services number. If anybody is having a crisis, that emergency services line is available 24/7, 365 days a year. The Region 4 mobile crisis line is listed as well. And I think it's important to note that the service is free. It doesn't matter if you have insurance or no insurance. It doesn't charge you for anything to call these numbers and to request assistance. The Region 4 mobile crisis line currently, if anybody has heard of CREST or REACH, those are some regional programs that are combined under that phone number. So if you call that number, that folks from both of those programs are available to respond. And right now, those services are CREST services are primarily for kids, but there's a plan in the near future to expand those mobile that mobile crisis line to include adults as well. And then I included the National Suicide Hotline, which is available for everyone. And if anybody is in kind of a more of an urgent situation, local emergency rooms are always available and recommended.
Thank you all so much for that great information.